trunks and some socks for sure. My surfboard and... Oh, hi there kids. My name is Joe and that's my wife Kate. And we're going on a really big trip.
And we really need to finish packing.
That's right. However, I can't seem to find my teddy. Have you guys seen my teddy?
Joe, I have it.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Kate. Now, this actually reminds me of someone else who took a really big trip a long time ago. And we can actually learn about it from part of the big God story. Would you like to learn about it? Cool. Kate, how about you?
Absolutely, but don't we need to finish packing?
Trust me, it's worth it. Whew. Now, this week, we're going to hear part of the big God story that teaches us that God is a covenant keeper and that we can trust Him. You may remember what a covenant is from the covenant that God made with Noah. Now, a covenant is an extra special promise. And when God makes a promise, He always keeps it. God is a covenant keeper. You may remember the promise that God made Noah and all of us. God promised Noah that he would never again flood the whole earth. And when God makes a promise,
He keeps it, no matter what.
That's right, because God is a covenant keeper. Yeah, and a long time after Noah, there lived a man named Abram. Now, Abram was very old. He lived with his wife Sarai, who was also very old. Well, one day, God spoke to Abram. He told him to leave his home and even the land of his people and go to a land far away. Abram told Sarai that they were going on a trip, but not just any trip. They were leaving their home and their land and moving to a new land far away, all because God had told them to, and because God had made a covenant with him. God had promised Abram that He would make him into a mighty nation, and that He would bless Abram, and that it would be through Abram that the whole world would be blessed by God. Abram and Sarai set out for the land God had promised them, because God is a covenant keeper, and they knew that they could trust Him. He promised to be with Abram and Sarai. Abram and Sarai pressed on. He knew that God had promised to make him into a great nation, and he trusted God. Eventually, Abram and Sarai arrived in the promised land. God appeared to Abram, telling him He would give this land to Abram's children. Abram trusted God, and even though he was already 75 years old and did not have a child, because he trusted God and wanted to worship Him, he built an altar. One night, God showed Abram all the stars in the sky. God told Abram that his family would be so big, it would be like trying to count all the stars in the sky. 1, 2, 3, 100, 200, 1 million? Can anyone count all the stars in the sky? That would be a big family. Even though Abram didn't have any children yet, Abram believed God and trusted Him. Abram knew that God is a covenant keeper and that he could trust Him. Years went by, and still, Abram and Sarai did not have a baby. Abram was now 99 years old. He still did not have any children, and he still trusted God. God had made a covenant with Abram. Remember, He told Abram that he would be father to a huge family. God also told Abram He would watch over them and be their God forever, and that God was going to use Abram's family to tell the whole world about Him. You see, God wants everyone to know all about Him and His great love for each person He created. So, God decided to use Abram's family to tell people all the things that are true about God. To remind Abram of His covenant, God gave Abram and his wife Sarai new names. God changed Sarai's name to Sarah, and He changed Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of many nations. Sarah and Abraham are part of God's big story. just like us. Abraham knew he could trust God because God is a covenant keeper. God kept his promises to Abraham. He now had a new home, a new name, and a relationship with the one true God. And you know what else? God kept another promise to Abraham. His name was Isaac. And because of God's faithfulness, Abraham's family grew and grew and grew. And God blessed the whole world through his family. So that is what God wanted to show us today from this part of the big God story. Now, when we think about what God did for Abraham, we can remember and know that God is a covenant keeper, and we can trust him no matter what. Ready to go on this trip, Kate?
Absolutely. And Joe,
Yeah,
thanks for sharing.
definitely. We'll see you next week, kids.